Standing on the northeast rocky headland of Eagle Island, visitors can look out on a 180-degree view of open sky, Casco Bay, and the Atlantic Ocean. This dramatic view is what enticed a young teenage boy named Robert E. Peary to tell himself that one day he would own Eagle Island. The smell and feel of a cool northeast breeze reminds visitors that they are on the edge of the North Atlantic Ocean. Although only 2 miles south of South Harpswell, Maine, standing on the island feels as though you are many miles away from civilization. This is the magic of Eagle Island. Eagle Island is a National Historic Landmark and Maine State Historic Site managed by the Maine Bureau of Parks and Lands and was originally the summer home of Robert E. Peary, his wife Josephine, and their children. Eagle Island comprises 17 acres and is located 12 miles northeast of Portland and 15 miles south of Brunswick, Maine.
10,000 years ago, a glacier dragged across the area of Casco Bay, which carved out the land surface and bedrock to form what are basically mountains. And over time, as the glaciers melted and the sea level increased, Eagle Island turned into an island. Half of the island is a critical nesting habitat for bird species. It's an ideal habitat due to our ground cover and the forest types and edge habitat that we have here, which is unique to Casco Bay.
There's lots of things available to do for visitors at Eagle Island. Some of them are walking our beautiful trails and visiting South Beach at the other end of the island, where you can really get a picturesque view of Maine.
Robert E. Peary was a determined, visionary Arctic explorer, engineer, surveyor, draftsman, taxidermist, husband, and father. He was born in Cresson, Pennsylvania in 1856. 3 years later, after his father died, he and his mother initially moved back to their family home in Fryeburg, Maine. They lived in Cape Elizabeth, Maine during his high school years. In 1877, he graduated second in his class from Bowdoin College with a degree in civil engineering. He bought Eagle Island for $200 in 1881 and was commissioned as a lieutenant and appointed a U.S. Navy civil engineer that same year. During most of his career, he was on leave from the Navy, exploring the Arctic. Peary's Arctic career spanned 23 years, during which time he led 8 expeditions, all privately funded, and some spanning multiple years. Initially, he began exploring the Greenland ice cap, and later focused on being the first Arctic explorer to reach the area of the North Pole. Peary sought out new ideas and information throughout his life. He came to realize that many Inuit technologies and travel techniques were superior to those developed by Euro-Americans. Peary employed Inuit women to make warm fur clothing for expedition members, and the sledges that carried supplies were based on Inuit designs. Peary also set up sledging teams comprised of both Inuit and Westerners, so that the latter could learn to drive dog teams employing Inuit technologies. The final leg of the successful 1909 expedition to the pole consisted of Peary, Hinson, Siglu, Uta, Igingwa, Ukwaya, and 40 dogs, pulling 5 sledges. The team spent about 30 hours in the area of the North Pole, during which time Peary crisscrossed this location, compiling surveying data from different directions. Born in 1866, Matthew Alexander Hinson, a charismatic African-American, became Peary's primary expedition assistant. He was well liked by the Inuit, the native people of northwest Greenland. He learned to speak their language and became an important communication link between Peary and the Inuit. Hinson was also an expert navigator, mechanic, and carpenter. He built many of the expedition's sledges and became a master dog team driver. All of Hinson's skills became indispensable to Peary's success. Matthew Henson was not immune to racial discrimination. After reaching the pole, the white expedition members were honored and celebrated nationally and internationally by the media. Henson was overlooked and excluded from all these celebratory events. In the late 1930s and 40s, Henson finally began to get some national recognition and to receive the honors that he deserved. He died in 1955 at age 88. In 1988, Matthew and his wife Lucy's remains were finally reinterred next to Admiral and Josephine Peary in Washington, D.C.'s Arlington National Cemetery. Admiral Peary always credited his wife, Josephine, as a key person to his success in reaching the pole. In 1863, Josephine Dybisht Peary was born in Washington, D.C. to immigrant parents and became a strong, independent, multi-skilled person like her future husband. During her life, she became a published author, journalist, skilled hunter and outdoorswoman, mother of Marie, Francine, and Robert Jr., accomplished fundraiser, participated on 3 Arctic expeditions, one of the few female recipients of the National Geographic Society's Medal of Achievement, and was the Peary family matriarch of Eagle Island. She also worked professionally both at the U.S. Census Bureau and at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. In 1891, she became the first woman to take part on an Arctic expedition and wrote her first book, My Arctic Journal, on this expedition, for which she was paid $5,000, a significant sum of money at the time. She enjoyed her first adventure so much that 2 years later she returned for a second expedition while pregnant and gave birth to their daughter Marie during the cold, dark Greenland winter. The story of the first white child born above the Arctic Circle is told in the children's book she wrote called The Snow Baby. In 1911, Robert E. Peary was appointed a Rear Admiral and retired from the U.S. Navy. In 1920, he died at age 65 of pernicious anemia, an illness associated with vitamin B12 deficiencies. Josephine continued to spend summers on Eagle Island for another 35 years, until her death in 1955 at age 92. The Peary Summer House is the museum which you are about to visit, and was designed by Admiral Peary and built in stages between 1904 to 1911. His design was intended to make one feel like being aboard a ship, and is still furnished today as it was when the Pearys lived there. There are many Arctic artifacts and Peary family furnishings you will learn about and see as you walk through the museum. Keep your eyes open for the following: the polar bear skin, the pianola, the 3-sided fireplace, the 20-pound lobster, Admiral Peary's leather trunk, and a copy of Josephine's book, The Snow Baby. As one of the outer islands of Casco Bay, Eagle Island has its own unique quality. Admiral Peary called it my promised land, and it became his refuge from the rest of the world. Please savor your experience on Eagle Island today, and come back again soon.